Hello, this is Julie from Love's Beginning, and I am here to talk to you today about the idea of door holders and I guess welcomers, I would call them. Um, it, it's all about the people in your lives and the people that you meet every day, um, anyone you interact with ever, and you can go in the past with this, a perspective on people who we could also call our divine siblings. And the idea behind this is to come up and out of the illusion that we're making together in this three-dimensional world, the illusion that would hold us. We can only hold ourselves in a limited state. Um, so the illusions that would hold us within those limits and feeling victimized by those limits. We're actually always working together to give ourselves the opportunity to come up and out of that limited perspective together. And everybody you meet is a role player playing a role. You're playing a role for other people and providing them opportunities to wake up from the dream of limitation um, or judgment. And they're playing a perfect role for you and always giving you the opportunity to step out of limitation and judgment. So if you think of somebody who is challenging for you or giving you a hard time, or you might look at somebody and think, well, that person's in a lower vibration than I am. We can look at the hierarchy of vibration and see how it serves us in this sense that when we're in this state that we call a higher vibratory state, things go well for us, we're more helpful to others, um, but we may be tempted to judge others. So that's something we want to leave behind us. We want to see the wholeness and the opportunity in everything in order to keep coming up and out of um, this these dreams full of limits and dreams full of victimization and dreams full of the idea of wrongdoing. We want to slide into something a bit more effortless. We want to play our role in removing the strife from the world, like I guess I'd say, removing the perspective and the encouraging of the repetition of scenarios where we're experiencing strife and believing in strife and believing that strife is inevitable. So if you look to a person that you could say, well, this person's in a lower vibratory state, and therefore what? Well, if they're in my orbit, within my experience at this moment, they're perfectly placed. So they're either holding the door open to me and saying, after you. And maybe that's somebody who's in this lower vibratory state. Maybe this person is yelling or doing something that makes you judge, cringe, internally cower. There's some reactiveness in you to whatever this other person, this role player, is doing. And what they're doing is not consciously, they are helping you feel something that you were afraid to allow yourself to feel in the past. Could have been yesterday, could have been when you were two, and learning to depend on this ego for stability and safety, learning to depend on this sense of separate and conflicting wills to get you from here to there. So, all along the way, you've had many, many opportunities to either remember the truth of who we all are or to cling more tightly to an individual identity and sort of forge ahead that way in struggle and in effort. So, let's say somebody around you is yelling and you're thinking that person's in a lower vibratory state. You could actually serve them and yourself much better if you realize they're holding the door open for you and saying, after you. That is the role their powerful being of light is playing for you. So they're holding the door open for you. What's your opportunity? You can allow yourself to feel, put your focus on okay, I know I'm being reactive right now, and I know I'm judging. So I'm going to allow myself to feel whatever I didn't allow myself to feel in the past. And thoughts will come up. Thoughts will come up. Thoughts that feel disturbing, thoughts. So you can hear the thoughts and realize it does not serve me to believe these thoughts at this moment. But I can allow the feeling and release, allow the feeling and release. So take my fingers off, but right here, take my fingers off this ego, this sense of separate self that I have been clinging to, this sense of forging ahead with effort in conflict with other wills that I have been clinging to. When the reality of us all is that there is only one will. And when I say that, it can sound creepy, like the one mind. So I always backtrack and say the truth of us all has always been that there's one divine will, love, supporting us, and all inspiration, free flow, effortlessness comes from that one will we all have. And all desires we have, every single one, no matter how you might judge it, comes from a desire to return to the peace and the effortlessness that is our actual shared identity. So, um, just by tuning into that one will, we're tuning into the reality of ourselves. So we go back to the yeller. The yeller is the door opener who's holding the door open and allowing us to go first into the next room. So if you think of yourself, the hierarchy will serve you right. Right now, if you think of yourself as okay, leveling up, I let myself feel that, I let myself release that. I'm going into the next room of awakening, and therefore of being being of true service to others. So the person who was yelling, I did not judge this person, or maybe I did, but then I stopped. I took the opportunity to feel whatever it was from my past that I didn't allow myself to feel when I chose the idea of clinging to ego instead, seeing the other people as separate, seeing myself as separate, seeing us in conflict, seeing that we had to struggle and forge ahead somehow. Um, so I forgive myself for that. I forgive them for yelling right now. There's really nothing to forgive and everything to appreciate. So once you see the role player, how they're letting you get in touch with what you refused to feel before, and you have this opportunity to let it go, then you can feel true gratitude for what they've done for you and just go into the next room. And when you go into the next room, the beautiful beings of light, you're one too, who are playing these roles unconsciously right now, you leave a magnetic pull for them to go into the next room too. Where I don't know where this phrase came from, but we're all walking each other home, every single one of us. So maybe you don't stay in the physical orbit of the person who is yelling. It doesn't mean that you stay with everybody. You go where you feel attracted, and you move away where you feel repulsed. And attraction and repulsion are just neutral forces that put us where it's optimal for us to be. Um, but if let's say you're out of the orbit of the person who is yelling, but whatever you did, if you stayed or you went, you did it without judgment and with appreciation for the opportunity you got through that experience with them. So then you leave a magnetic pull for that being to follow you into the next room of awakening. And there is no hierarchy because every being has a way in which loving and effortless flow is natural for them. I don't care how small it is or how not apparent on the surface it is. Everybody has a particular or maybe many particular ways in which the love flows through them. That's why the body is still alive. I don't care what heinous things, what roles this being has played in this current lifetime in order to give everybody around them opportunities to wake up. There is still love. That being is love. And the body would not be alive otherwise. So, where was I going with this? We go into the next room, we take the opportunities given to us. Oh, okay. It's not necessarily well, I'm the leader. I'm going to go in the next room, then you're going to follow me, and then I'll go into the next room, then you're going. I'm in the lead because I know more and I know how this works. People could leapfrog. People, people could go. The hierarchy is not true, but it's how we think. So I'm just using this leveling up or this going into the next biggest room, next bigger room of awareness. People could go 5 rooms ahead of us and then be a door holder for us. Um, so they're the people who hold the doors, and if we and invite us into the next level. If we can successfully not judge them and appreciate them, we get to release and go. Then there are the people who are in the next room or in the swimming pool saying the water's fine, jump in, or come on in, we're having a party. Those are the people who are glowing with happiness, um, maybe in some ways and not others, in particular situations, but they invite us. We are accustomed to clinging to the small self, clinging to the sense of separate and conflicting wills. So, with the people who are already in the next room and saying, come on in, um, we may instead go to a smaller and comfortable feeling of jealousy or inadequacy or smallness. And then we would judge the people who are in the next room saying, hey, come on in, by their success, their happiness, and I can hear you and myself saying, yes, but sometimes these people who are successful are really mean, and they didn't get ahead by being kind to others, or but there is, on all levels of our lives, an effortless flow that we can follow, and people in many, many different ways tune into this flow of maybe somebody's really good at material abundance, or maybe somebody's really good at taking time to listen, or maybe somebody else is really good at appreciating the sky and just stopping and looking and appreciating what's there. And maybe somebody else is good at really detail oriented things that would never cross our minds to consider or pay attention to. Everybody's good at something, and everybody's in the effortless flow in some way. So we can all benefit from each other all the time. And if it looks like the other person has leveled up and you haven't, you could think of them as just inviting you into the next room. And if it looks like that person is opposing you or causing a problem for you, then they're actually holding the door open and letting you go first. And once you go first, then they get to go too. It's like this healing. This healing is always shared. I had an interesting experience yesterday, where a member of my family has experienced some medical things lately, and we have not been very medically oriented. So, being in a medical setting is different. And there's been, for me, some learning to trust where I am and who I'm with, and not judging it, and not thinking, well, just because we're in this setting, something's going to happen to alter our control over our lives. You hear the ego there, or damage us in some way, or just going through the experience, understanding what is really happening here. We're being challenged, we're letting go, we're appreciating, and everything is an opportunity. So I'm in this room with a few medical professionals and my family member, and um, I got invited into this space between minds. So I had this sense of, we're all together and people are talking, but there's only one of us here. So if you go to the place where people are naturally thriving and naturally communicating well, and relaxed and loving in all their different ways, but it's actually the same place, the same mind. If you think of, it's one shared mind, but we're in these separate cubicles and we protect them quite fiercely. And sometimes when you're in a close proximity with a bunch of people, it's like 5 people, um, you can feel all those cubicle walls, and sometimes you can feel them start to vibrate with more tension, because minds are going here and there, and people aren't voicing all those conflicting thoughts, but they're having them, and they're having them in close proximity to each other. And the patient might be worrying, and the practitioners might be having some different thoughts about what's going on. Um, so, if you realize, well, there's a space, there's a common room, and if I just kind of like walk from my separate cubicle into the common room, which is the peace that we all are and the love that we all are, and I abide there, there is a magnetic pull. So, um, if people are not used to abiding in the common room, they can feel the pull and think, oh, I'm going to just stroll out of my cubicle and go over to the water cooler mentally and have a little drink. You can feel the tension in the room subside, and you can feel the functionality become, what do I want? I wanted to say premium, or um, can feel the functionality becoming more effortless for everybody. You can feel the level of trust increase. You can feel the cells relaxing in the bodies. Um, so if you go to this demilitarized zone where it's not, I'm in my cubicle and I'm talking to you in your cubicle, and I have my judgments and perspectives in my cubicle, and you have your judgments and perspectives in your cubicle, and you just go to the common area and you stay there, then you will feel the other participants with you also go to the common area and stay there and talk to you there from that perspective. And that's a shared space. And people might have all the same judgments and perspectives when they're in the common area, but the feeling of interaction is very, very different, focused and calm and open and appreciative. And the tense energies just sort of level off and spread out, and you get into that shared space. So this is nothing new. What I experience is nothing new. Like I was getting tense, and I was staying in my cubicle, and I could feel myself judging, and I could feel myself becoming defensive. So I realized, well, that's that's not serving anybody here. So I just realized, oh, it's this. There's one of us here in this room. I mean, conceptually, I got that, and I've felt that for years, but it was a very personal, in the moment experience of, oh, I can walk into our common area and just sit there, and then everything else follows. And it's a gift to myself and to everybody, because higher functioning occurs for everybody, because um, I'm not in my own cubicle like banging my pots and pans about um, what I think and what I know. It's not that I don't speak. It's not that I don't offer a perspective. It's just that the energy surrounding the whole experience is very different. It's very supportive to everybody. It's not energy for one person against another. It's just energy that comes in and supports everybody in their highest functioning. And that space, and the space between minds, it's not so much about door holding and or somebody inviting you into the next room. um, it's a different feeling. So there's that invitation too, that whoever you're with, if you realize, oh, I'm off in my separate cubicle, but I'm with somebody here, why don't I go into the common room and sit there and let the energy flow from there? And that feels a lot more like inspiration and trust and being supported, and the right words coming to you at the right time, and the right words coming to them at the right time. It feels like optimal communication. So I think that's it on this journey we're on together. If we realize that everybody, down to the syllable, down to the breath, is perfectly placed doing exactly the right things to help us remember who we are and how this works and how energy works, then we're always perfectly placed ourselves and everything's going well. Thank you.